It was a very nice collage of photos. Good job, Andrew, putting that together. Thank you. Dedicated to, of course, late great Willis Reed. Unfortunately, the Knicks could not get a win for the captain tonight. I am joined by Benji Ritholtz to talk about this one. Hello, Benji. How are you?
Hey, saluting the captain, the great one. We'll miss him.
Yeah, he'll be missed not only by Knicks fans everywhere, but I think by just anybody who likes professional sports, likes the NBA, likes basketball. Is a New Yorker, was around for him. So yeah, we I don't know, I guess we dedicate this post game to his honor. Hopefully we will uphold his standards of professionalism and respectability. I'm going to try my best. Um Tough game. I thought this was not a game. I should start by saying this was not a game that I expected to win going in. I, for the life of me, could not imagine that the Heat were going to go down in 0-3 in the season series to us needing the game in their own building after how not only the last one ended, but really the last two ended. And especially, and shout out to DJ Zulo put out, you and DJ Zulo put out really nice threads today. You were focused on I think what's going to be the biggest topic of this post game, which is the Knicks defense, but DJ focused on how the Knicks won their last game in Miami, which was just with extraordinary shot making. They did get some shot making tonight, not from the usual suspects though. Quentin Grimes, I know you were excited. We finally got a Quentin Grimes game, and RJ Barrett had, I think, one of his best offensive performances. It was funny. It was quiet, but only quiet because it was just all good stuff from RJ. And then shot making wise, Brunson also had a good game, but a strange Brunson game and on offense we'll talk about that. And then obviously, again, we'll get into the defense, and then just not a very good game from Julius. Let me just start with your opening thoughts, which I have a feeling I know where you're going to be going with this one.
Yeah, I think the opening thoughts have to be on the defense and the concern level that the Knicks have to be feeling with the amount of threes and percentage of threes they're giving up. But overall, the looseness and the indecisiveness and the unconnectedness of their defense right now is definitely concerning. And it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because they had been playing much better on that side of the ball. But there's, there are a few plays I could point to that were just like head scratching. Like, what are we doing? And that's team defense. On the individual level, I think as the games are getting more playoff like, and teams are desperate, and they're not just going to go by their teams start planning for you when the games get more important, and it's less about them going through their stuff. And what teams are starting to do now is go right at Jalen Brunson consistently and often, no matter who it is. And both Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry had their way with him at times. When he was switched on to others, they had their way with him. That's got to be a concern, and he's got to get better. He can't be conceding easy penetration at the very least.
So I want to go back to that in a second. What I do want to say to start, for one, as Fred Katz, I think, tweeted out a few minutes ago, this is the second straight game a team shot 57% from three against the Knicks. I'm pretty sure the Heat also shot some obscene percentage overall because they were just making a lot of shots. Like, you could have a team or two teams, whatever. Well, you could have consecutive games against the worst defenses in the league, and you might not see teams shoot, good shooting teams, bad shooting teams, whatever. Shoot 57% from three in an NBA game. With that said, if you are playing defense the way a team that is, I think we've been trying to talk ourselves into being like a dark horse contender to, like, maybe at the very least make a run to the conference finals or something. If you fancy yourself that type of team, you cannot give up 50. Like, there is something wrong if you were giving up 57% from three in consecutive games. That's number one. Number two, I just want to get it out of the way now, and you could say what you want about it before I want to get back to the Brunson overall defense thing. The refereeing was not good tonight. I thought the refereeing was definitely, it wasn't good across the board. I thought it was much worse whistle for the Knicks. Is there a world where if it was like a better whistle, the Knicks are maybe, I don't know, maybe this game comes down to the last shot or something? Yeah, I mean, I guess, but it was frustrating. It was annoying. It wasn't a good whistle. It's not what I am going to remember from this game. So, and anything on those two thoughts before we move on to back to what you said before?
No, there was a stretch there where I'm the last person. I think you and I might be the last two people to
we don't
ever
do
go with
this.
the refs. I really don't do it because I do think the stuff evens out. But there were a couple of plays like where the Hartenstein moving screen, which like I just maybe thought was a no call, and if anything, Love kind of put his arm around Hartenstein's chest and neck area and dragged him down, and then Strus like throws like a high shoulder screen at Mitch and then pulls him down and gets the call on Mitch. And yeah, those were
pivotal
two big plays.
Pivotal stretch.
Yeah. And generally, I just didn't think the Knicks got a call in like the third and then early fourth quarter, which definitely hurt. But you can't control that stuff. And I think the more obviously like the Knicks getting into the stretch run here of the season are not going to be focusing on that. They're going to be focusing on what's going on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that's where everyone's focus should be.
Yes. And we should say, that was the other thing I wanted to say up top. Like, this was not a must-win game for the Knicks. It was a game that if the Knicks won, I would be getting on here and being like, we're making the playoffs. Like, that was like that win. You won the season series against the Heat. You went up 4 in the loss column on the Heat with 8 to play. You have the tiebreaker. Like, they're going to make, I mean, unless the Nets make a miraculous run, I would have got on here and be like, we're getting the 5 seed. I still think they have a very good chance to get the 5 seed, or at the very least make the top 6, which at the very least has to be the goal. I still think the 5 it should be, without question, the 5 seed should be the goal. That said, they have now put more pressure on themselves in a couple ways. Now, either you have to beat the Heat at home, or if you don't do that, you kind of, and again, it depends on Miami and it depends on Brooklyn. Like, let's not count out the Nets. I know they've been struggling lately, but like you give yourself very little leeway. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this game tomorrow against my Orlando, a team that for nearly, I think over 4 months, because since December 7th, so yeah, over 3 months, 3.5 months, has been playing over 500 ball, and they're playing good ball lately, and they have won some. They won in LA against the Clippers. They've beaten Denver. They've beaten Boston a whole bunch this year. They beat Philly. Like this team could beat you. So, but whatever. That we'll worry about that tomorrow. Back to the defense thing. What I want to know from you is, because I see the same thing as you in terms of like they're just people are targeting Brunson, and he can't stay in front of his man at the moment, and like then you throw in like Randall and RJ, who are, I don't know, media. RJ's been defending better. How did you think RJ defended tonight? Let me ask you that.
Didn't think he was the culprit much.
Okay.
It's the kind of thing where you watch it back and get a better sense, but I did not think he made, I can't even think. There was one defensive play he made late in the game where he was switched on to Butler and he kind of just like opened his arms up and let him go left for a layup. And Brunson tried to take the charge. I didn't really understand that, why he turned his hips like that. It's very weird. That's the one play that really stands out as a poor defensive play. I thought generally he was pretty good defensively tonight. And overall, I mean, a great game for him.
Oh, I mean, the best player of the game without question. Randall, but even Randall, it's like more the stuff that drives you crazy, like not having a handout up on the perimeter, which was, I mean, you saw that one coming. So he's a mediocre defender, but it feels like Brunson not being able to stay in front of his man or them targeting Brunson, that's like the first domino, and like that individual issue is directly connected with the team stuff. Is that fair to say?
It's probably, I think it is all connected. Defense is connected. And I think anytime, I think once you sense that Brunson's struggling, there's more help, you're trying to shrink the floor, and then other things open up. I do think that's true, but I don't think that it's the only thing. I think, there's been Brunson, I can deal with like Gabe Vincent hits him with a shoulder and hits a step back on him. Those you got to live with. And even the threes that guys catch, like I can think of the one Taurean Prince 3, and I thought there was one Vincent 3 tonight. They just shot over the top of him.
Yeah.
You got to live with that. That's just Jalen Brunson being 6 feet tall. But there's plays where he's over helping at the nail, and Kyle Lowry blows by him and like breaks down. It's like Kyle Lowry can't move. Like you can't be like getting like that. There's stuff that you can accept from Jalen Brunson as a defender because that's built into who he is. And then there's the stuff that I think he's doing worse right now than he was doing early in the season, And I think it's partially because teams are really targeting it now, but I also think he just needs to be better. And I think he's capable of being better than that. I also think, though, that there are a few plays that come to mind. There's a double drag screen where Bam and Kevin Love are screening. Now, that's like a classic action that the Heat are going to run X amount of times in a game when they're playing that two big lineup. Kevin Love is wide open for three. Just not a soul. You have to be prepared for that action and understand how you're handling it. Are you switching? How are you hedging? How are you dealing with the double drag? Are you staying with the ball handler? Those are all things that need to be discussed and hashed out so that you're not confused on the action itself. That can't happen. Stuff that we're falling asleep off ball a lot. Corner threes are getting hit on us because our heads are turned where we're just not on a swivel enough. Just basic stuff. And then I think the centers who had a couple of great games recently. But of the last two have been really poor in terms of their pick and roll coverage. I just don't think it's been good and solid.
Agreed.
And I think it hasn't been aggressive enough. And so I think it's a whole lot of things. IQ, I don't think has been on point. And I hesitate to criticize him defensively, but rotationally, we're so used to him being flawless, and it has not been flawless of late. Grimes too often with a hand down or not quite eating up the space the way he has to against shooters. Josh Hart has gotten lost a lot off ball recently. They're running stuff for him while he's getting screened off and stuff like that. So I really think it's kind of running down the list, but I think they all have to kind of rededicate themselves to it.
When it just popped into my mind because it came up during the halftime Zoom. When you don't have that one kind of shut down perimeter defender to sick on whatever the opposing team's biggest threat is, from what I'm hearing you say, it's you basically just you don't have the margin forever. And I think I think I've gotten spoiled because for 2 straight years now, the Knicks really they get to the point down the stretch of these seasons, even last season, which was a disaster. They were after the All-Star break, they were the best defense in the league, So it's they pull it together and they get better defensively as the year goes along, not worse. And what's really frustrating is you could make it I don't want to say that tonight was their best offensive night of the season, but their offense was real. The passing I thought was exceptional tonight. Obviously, we got the Grimes game, we got the RJ game, we got Brunson. Other than the turnovers, which was just kind of weird, he did his usual stuff. It was just Randall that was kind of off offensively, but offensively, there's no problems with this team offensively right now. It's just the other end. It's strange.
Yeah, I would say Brunson. His decision making, especially in the third quarter, I thought where they both got a little ISO heavy there. When I just felt
those 3 straight.
If they moved the ball at all, it was they were getting a good shot, and that's crazy to me. And that still surprises me how easily they get good shots now, but they do. And Brunson, look, the Heat are very long and they're aggressive, and sometimes Brunson can run into those when he gets too deep in the paint, doesn't have an outlet. He can get some bad turnovers that way. That was my only qualm, really, is a couple of isolations I thought they could have done without, and the turnovers, which hurt. And the Heat got out in transition, especially in the first half, a lot.
Yes.
And that really hurt the Knicks because of those turnovers and some bad shots too that lead to those, basically the fast breaks the other way.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else before we get you out of here. Before we do personal injury report, moment of the game. The second unit, we should spend a second on them. I mean, I thought their stretch in the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, whatever. No, it was the beginning of the fourth quarter. Best stretch of the game. I mean, offensively, especially because the Heat were kind of making buckets too, but they got the lead back and saw some good stuff from Obi Toppin. Saw some nice stuff from Josh Hart. You saw some really nice stuff from RJ Barrett. We should probably, before we get to the 2 segments, spend a moment to appreciate RJ Barrett, because I don't talk about him enough when he does good things. And I think that's people's complaint is you kill him when he's bad, give him his flowers when he's good. When he's good, let's give him some flowers. Because he took, I want to say, what did he take? 15 shots tonight? 16 shots tonight? It was not a lot of shots. However many shots? 13 shots tonight. So 26 points on 13 shots. That has to be one of 5 times in his career, if not fewer. I mean, it's definitely under 10 that RJ has finished with twice as many points as shots that he took. So, there's definitely an argument that RJ should have gotten more shots in that game. If we're going to get this version of RJ Barrett, though, moving forward, I feel really good about the Knicks' chances, assuming they could clean up the defensive stuff.
Yeah, I love the variety he's playing with. I think that's been the takeaway for me during this stretch is it's less of the put my head down, get to my left, hope that I can hit, a lefty scoop shot, and we'll see what happens. He's mixing in euros. He's mixing in a lot of right-handed moves. He's mixing in up fakes and up and unders. He's mixing in reverse layups, a little floater game, a little post game, like just better variety, better decision making. And to me, I mean, the stretch has been so encouraging and frankly, rejuvenating. Like it's great to see him play like this. It's been we've been waiting for this. And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like going into the All-Star break, there was definitely a part of me that was like, and I think I may have said this even on the post game once or twice, where it's like, I think these next however many games it's been, 20, 22 games, 25 games, are going to decide what happens with RJ Barrett in New York, because if he comes down the stretch and he plays like he did over in the pre-All-Star break, there's no question that he will be gone this summer. And that was just my opinion. That's what I figured. Like they will not go into another year with that. But on the other hand, if he plays really well, it gets into some other, because if he plays well, that makes him more in demand, and then you could maybe think it also seals the deal at the time. But at the very least, I have to think how he's played lately. And assuming it continues, and God willing, assuming it goes into the playoffs as well, that's going to change the calculus a little bit. And it's great. It's been great to see.
100%. And the luxury of this RJ Barrett, like think about what Miami was doing right from the get-go. And this is not something they did in the Knicks last matchup. They decided we're putting Bam on Randall and Jimmy on Brunson. And we're just going to put our best defenders on their best players, and everyone else can figure it out. And I thought the Knicks countered it well, and one of the ways they countered is, okay, that means your third best defender, and it's Gabe Vincent in this case, is starting on RJ Barrett. Okay, well that's a matchup we can exploit.
Yep.
And then having that third shot creator when Brunson and Randall are dealing with a defense like this is extremely valuable, assuming he plays with this kind of intelligence and maturity and confidence. And that's what you saw tonight. And yeah, it's a massive luxury to have a guy like that as your third scorer. And the way that Tibbs and this, I was thrilled by this, was like, I was kind of getting nervous that he was falling into a default Josh Hart and IQ close. Yep. And I love both those guys. And IQ, I think, has been by far the best of the four this season, including Hart even. I just think he's been incredible this season. But as we've talked about before, those four guys who are fighting for those two spots provide very unique skill sets.
Yep.
And it's a weapon to be able to employ them at different points of the game and against different personnel. And I thought Tibbs really did a good job in that sense of you know what? Grimes had it going. RJ had it going. Let's let them close. And Hart and IQ can sit for this game, and they'll have their game whenever, it doesn't have to be set in stone. It shouldn't be set in stone because it's an advantage. And having RJ being able to do what he did tonight raises this team's ceiling significantly, and it's really exciting to see. So props to him.
All the props in the world. I'm happy. Last thing, and then we'll move on to personal injury report. Is the list of things like you just rattled off. He has to be smart and still be confident, and it's like that. I feel like has been the tough thing to get both of those, because when he's ultra confident, you feel like maybe he's not always being smart, but sometimes if the confidence could go away when he is getting too hesitant, and it's like that's a tough balance, especially for a young player, 22 years old. So yeah.
And look, making a couple threes helps. It helps a lot.
Two straight games, multiple threes now.
Really good to see him knock down these open shots, because they do need that as well. So yeah, RJ, look again. The offense is nothing but encouraging. Everyone's playing pretty well offensively. IQ's in a little bit of a slump. I'm not worried about him. Everyone is playing well offensively. It's a matter of figuring out the defense. That's what they got to do.
Yeah, we just went through a lot of stuff that was not great about tonight. Obviously, the defense you just mentioned quickly. He was 1 of 8, 1 of 5 from 3. Toppin ended up only 1 of 5. Like they shot 51% from the field, 40% from 3. Those are good numbers.
Plenty good enough.
Yeah, plenty good enough, but they lose the game by 7. We talked about the refereeing. This team is good. This team is solid. It's just again, you lose this game after you lose that Minnesota game. It's just the margin for error continues to go down. So now it's okay, at some point I do believe whether it's the next Miami game, whether it's the Cleveland game, like this, I have a feeling this team's going to need to come up with one more big regular season win to secure what they want to secure. Okay. Personal injury. Oh, Andrew. Yes. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
GMAC.
What up, Benji? Long time no see.
Doesn't
Great
like
job
when we
on
lose
the.
to the Heat.
I'm going on Giancarlo's show tomorrow, so I kind of set myself up for a pretty fun Thursday evening. Can't wait for my appearance on the Miami Heat beats. For those who want to tune in for moral support, I'd appreciate it. I have 2 questions for both of you, and I want to preface, it's not the reason they lost the game. They're just observations I made regarding some substitution patterns. Josh Hart has become like the de facto he will play no matter what.
Mhm.
I actually thought we could have had more Quentin Grimes. He didn't check back in until they were down 12 and didn't check in until they were down 12, and it was just to go small. He didn't check in for Hart. He checked in for Hartenstein.
Yeah.
By the way, I loved that. I did,
but he also it took Miami going small first. It was a reactive move because they took Kevin Love out, and then
but they had Bam out there the whole time.
Yeah.
But my point is, like, they had gone without Kevin Love to go to the 4 out.
Yeah.
The point is, like, are you saying Grimes should have come in earlier for Hart?
But are you okay with the fact that, like, it's actually not 2 spots? It's really been RJ or Quickly.
Right. So I was speaking more. And look, closing the game, I agree. Hart is, I think, closed every game as far as I remember.
Yes.
But usually he's also closed every first half as far as I can remember. So that was even a step that he came out of the first half and Grimes finished, because Grimes has played just in the first and just in the third for a few games in a row now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy to see that. And that's really what I was referring to. I agree that it shouldn't be Hart every night, and the Sacramento game comes to mind actually as one where I thought Grimes definitely should have played so he can guard Fox. In this case, the way Jimmy Butler was playing and was kind of pulverizing Grimes and forcing him into a bunch of fouls.
You thought it was pulverizing Grimes?
I thought, pulverized everybody.
Yeah, well,
Grimes was the main assignment, and Grimes did his best. He's given up a lot of size in that matchup. So I did understand why Hart was in that game. And then RJ played so well that you weren't gonna. So unless you're gonna go to that small lineup where you can play all of them, I think it's a hard decision. I do understand it. I don't know, John, how you feel about it.
I feel the same way. I mean, Josh Hart, how many times have literally, it's been every game since he's been here almost, where I've come on here and be like, Josh Hart, all he does is make winning plays. Tonight didn't make the winning plays that stood out, at least, that ended up winning the game.
He did make 2 threes.
Yeah, he made 2 threes, but it's like this is why I kind of always go back to, like, when you watch a game and it's like hindsight's always going to be 20/20, because the thing that needed to happen to get you the win didn't happen, and thus the alternative becomes the option that looks better in retrospect. But how many games have we again talked about where it's like, oh, look, Josh Hart doing 3 or 4 things in 5 possessions or 6 possessions that like turn the game around? It didn't happen tonight.
I agree. Hindsight's 20/20. This was something on playback we were calling for as it was happening. That Grimes needs to be back in the game.
Yeah, I think there are basketball reasons why Hart was right for that game, but I do understand the sentiment for sure.
It was literally just I thought that because the defense was so bad, you had to match them shot for shot, and their most dependable 3-point shooter tonight was Quentin Grimes. He's the one that got them back in the game late in the third when nobody could hit a shot. They were heavy in isolation, and it was like, well, maybe apparently, according to Kirk Goldsberry, the most dependable corner 3-point shooter in the league, right corner 3-point shooter, could get
pretty
hot.
sick,
and
right? That was a shocking one to see.
Yeah.
And they need to look anytime, just give him that ball and let him shoot it. We've been saying it all year.
Yeah.
But the reason that these sorts of conversations about, like, oh, how do you not get Grimes in there 2, 3, 4 minutes earlier or whatever it is it boils the game down to like that decision, when this game was about so much more than that.
Again, I started this with, it's not the reason they lost the game. I knew how this was going to go.
You did. Yeah. But,
I'm preparing you that when that comes up, no one is saying it's the reason they lost the game. They're saying, this is a thing. Do you give me your thoughts?
I understand it.
And an indictment of the head coach. It's
what was your second thing, Andrew?
The Hartenstein foul, which was atrocious. Why didn't he challenge it? Which doesn't even go to like.
Oh, the
my question is so much. Fred Katz, you listen to these podcasts. This is probably not an interesting thing to do right now because the team is in playoff contention. Can you go find out what the replay process is, the review process is for the Knicks? Because they have a whole team sitting with iPads behind the bench. And if they see what we see, is it their job to notify Tibbs? Is it their job to notify Johnny Bryant so he can go notify Tibbs? Is that on Tibbs' front turning around every single possession to be like, do I challenge? No. And then turn back around because there's a basketball game going on. So the replay system sucks. I'm just curious. Why was that not like should we challenge this?
I think you're making it out to be a lot more complicated than it is. I think on a play like that, especially, and you could say the Mitch play too, although I'm not sure if that was challengeable, whatever. There is a part of it where it's like, how likely is it, even if it was clear like a bad call, how likely it is that is going to be overturned, And if anything, and Josh Hart, funny you say that, Josh Hart. And again, talk about winning plays. Could you imagine if they had called a travel on Jimmy Butler when Josh Hart was trapping him there at the end, and they Knicks Muse, I think, tweeted it out that Jimmy Butler's pivot foot moved a few times and they ended up calling a foul that was not a foul. So like there's an instance where like, was that challengeable? That's the one that I would peg is like, why didn't you challenge that
That's
one?
a possession. Like the reason I go to the Hartenstein one is because I thought that was like the replay showed Kevin Love literally bringing him down to the ground with him, and it led to a Brunson 3-pointer. So it's points as well as possession. Right.
That's probably the best argument is it might have been 3+1, which is like as many. That's a ton of value in terms of like there's challenge value. That's like there's and that one where you could get potentially, although I don't know if the timing would have worked out, and that's something that they would have looked at. Hopefully, is whether they would have gotten the N1 potentially if it happened at the same time. I'm not positive, and I'm not looking at it right now. I looked at it twice. Although Love does come up on Hartenstein's like neck area, I'm not positive that Hartenstein was stationary before that. So the question was, so even if Love made it an illegal act after, they might have upheld the Hartenstein like slight side to side movement there, and then you lose your challenge. So I don't know if that's what went into it. I'm not looking at the play this second. I agree though that something you can question based on the potential value, assuming again that the timing was correct.
Last thing I want to say on challenges, I think it's tough because I imagine, obviously I'm not a coach, but I imagine the last thing you would want to happen as a coach is a play that clearly, if you had a challenge and you used it, it would be overturned and you have lost the challenge because you have done it. I think that is why he's hesitant with challenges.
Right. Again, I that's true for sure. I just think depending on value, because the chances of a 4-point value late in the game are very, very, very slim, even if it's later in the game. So all these calculations should be, I hope, going that, and that's a good question to ask, Andrew, is like, what is the process?
What's the process? I agree with John's sentiment. Is Tibbs like, I might need my challenge later. I want to save it. If it's so blatant like that, is it?
It's also tough in terms of time. Like they're just inbounding the ball, right? So you have to do it in like 5 seconds. Also, that makes it very hard. So
again, they lost the game because of the defense, the officials, and Jimmy Butler was in demigod mode. I'm not blaming the coach. I'm simply just saying
strutting around. Jimmy Butler was
observations
and talking.
Okay,
all I want to know,
real quick, hold on, John. I have something to say for Jimmy Butler, who doesn't know who I am and is never going to care who I am. In the words of Michael Jordan, it's really easy to talk shit when you're up. Let me hear that talk when it's 0-0. Okay, buddy?
Jimmy Butler, I'll say this right now. Jimmy Butler can say whatever the fuck he wants. That man.
Okay, but I will say that I liked Randall's energy on
great.
Because I didn't like the tech. He's getting too many techs and like he needs to chill. But I did like, look, man, we beat you twice. We're ahead of you in the standings. You're like whatever seed you are, like you're strutting around and you deserve, and you're right, John. He's like, he has that kind of pedigree and he's that good. I'm not saying no. I do like Randall saying like, hey man, chill for a sec. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
We're in a good spot. And I just liked it. I liked how that felt at the time. I felt like the team appreciated it. I don't know. I was into that.
I'm all for that. All I want to know is because he was chirping at someone in particular, and I guarantee you that
stands or on the bench. I couldn't tell.
Oh no, certainly in the
on the bench.
There was I guarantee you there was a Knicks someone wearing Knicks something or someone that he knew that was a Knicks fan or something that he kept going back to. I get because I was paying attention to it. He was looking at the same place in the court every time. and it was
Yeah,
at least
same,
4 or
like-
5 times.
Wasn't it the camera? He was looking at the
No,
too
it wasn't.
small
No,
he did to
no,
Brunson
no,
was
it wasn't. It
into
was
the
toward-
MSG camera.
No, it was towards. I could, if I drew out the court, I could show you where exactly he was looking. The same place every time. It was
So
someone sitting in the stands, and I
Is there
would
a
love to know
Spike
who that
Lee
person
that
is.
we need to go investigate?
I don't know.
A Knicks
I don't
fan
know,
that
but,
got
like-
under. So let's just do moment of the game now. It's that fan getting let in for attendance for tonight's game.
Sure.
It's
Which fan?
me, the fan that John's talking
Oh, good
about
call.
that
Okay,
Jimmy Butler
sorry.
took
Wow.
it personally out on.
Yeah.
It's me agreeing to go on a Miami Heat pod, which of course set up perfectly for me to go on after a Knicks loss.
Good
And then I
job
actually
by
think
you.
it's fitting. Moment of the game is a tribute at the beginning because it's the moment I got most emotional beforehand when you go from, and this is, I cannot believe this is where I'm going to end this, between Clyde talking about his former teammate who is now gone, and then the Miami Heat with a very touching in-arena tribute. Classy job by that organization. And that's the last nice thing I will say about the Miami Heat.
Perfect.
Oh, that's so okay. I figured out who it was. He wasn't doing it to someone. It was Dwayne Wade.
Oh yeah, it probably was Wade.
Dwayne Wade was sitting courtside and he
so
was
they-
putting on a show for Dwayne Wade.
It might have been Wade. Wade was sitting in that area.
Yeah,
like,
it
he
might
was
have
left. I think it was Wade.
All right.
Good call. Good call.
I don't know. I guess maybe, but it seemed like it was more venomous than. But that's how Jimmy rolls. So
Yeah.
It's a venomous man.
The guy's an oddball. Apparently the Heat turnaround is because they lost a game they should have won, and he blasted Nickelback in the locker room for like hours and hours and was singing every word. And since then, they're like, we cannot lose because then Jimmy's gonna blast Nickelback in the locker room again.
he's my favorite non-Nick in the NBA. I don't know if it's close.
He's good, man.
I'm shocked that someone who plays for Pat Riley is your favorite.
and when he's making outside shots, he's unstoppable.
Oh, he's unstoppable. And when he's
Made
getting
him tonight.
calls, like he
What-
Well, he
and
what
always
look,
gets calls.
You
What
go
I would do
to-
root for that guy.
He always gets calls.
you go
He
to
always gets
XJ's favorite stat at EPM. He's third in the NBA this season at
He's
EPM.
incredible.
Yeah, no
Oh,
shit. Because all
he's
the
been
guy
out.
does everything, every moment, every second he's on the floor leads to winning. That's all it does. It's a winning basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
The epitome of a winning basketball player. Anyway,
Relax, John.
Seriously.
Oh my
You like
God,
Jimmy
I-
Butler.
I could sit here for an hour and talk about how Jimmy Butler is the epitome of a basketball player. What he did against LeBron in the finals, what was it, 3 years ago?
Mhm.
Sick.
That was
Only
sick.
thing I've ever seen
Yeah.
like that in sports is Terrell Owens coming back and playing in the Super Bowl and doing what he did after he had no business walking. But yeah, anyway, I'm off track. Sorry. All right, you want to do a quick injury report that has no
Sure.
injuries in it?
The Knicks don't have any injuries, but shout out to Barry Weiss and who's the other? Rosenblum.
Yeah, Barry Weiss and Amy Rosenblum.
Amy,
Shout out to
yes.
thank you to our sponsors. Getting to this a little late. Apologies. Call them today if you think you have a case. 212-366-6100. Again, 212-366-6100. Or visit weissandrosenblum.com for more information. Again, if you think you have a case, call them for an absolutely free consultation. If they take your case, they will not get paid unless you do. Go with a veteran, not a rookie. Prior results don't guarantee future outcomes, but again, give them a call. 212-366-6100. Here's my question for the personal injury report. Knicks play tomorrow. Here's how much they pushed it tonight. Randall played 36 minutes, Brunson 37, Barrett 36, Hart 29. You guys concerned they'll have enough legs for tomorrow against a tough Orlando team?
Yes. Oh,
I'm
concerned? No. Concerned? No.
Concerned. That's what
I think they'll have enough tomorrow night against an Orlando team.
Yeah, they better. I wonder generally if it's a tired team sometimes of late, and I wonder if that's contributing. It's really hard. It's a hard thing to assess from afar, and when you're watching. But it is the case that sometimes being a little bit slow, being a bit even mentally off in terms of your defensive focus, it could just be a result of fatigue. And Randall's played a whole lot of games, and it's worth a conversation. We'll see. I hope they have it tomorrow. They need it. Big win.
Big game for them, and I will. What was I just going to add? The Randall thing. Speaking of Fred Katz, shout out to him for his article today. Playing all those games is probably a reason why he's going to wind up getting All NBA.
Play games.
Yes, play games if you're a basketball player. The only other thing I will say is after tomorrow, assuming the Knicks can get into the top 6, they will play 7 games in 21 days if you factor
That's
in
a
the play.
beautiful thing for them.
Mhm.
Yeah. But
That's awesome.
they got to get there.
Benji, before you go,
Sup?
we could probably work this out just like offline, but do you want to go 50-50 on a Jimmy Butler jersey for John for his birthday?
Don't get me that.
No, I'll just get it. I'll get him the Butler jersey when they trade for him.
I was about
When
to
they
say, wait until they trade
him.
for him.
Got it. Okay, because that's gonna happen.
And-
You're right.
I obviously heard the
Mhm.
segment from today's pregame pod. He said exactly what I've been saying. You really think Pat Riley's just going to be like, oh, no, I'm not telling you to the Knicks. If the Knicks make the best deal, come on.
He literally said the opposite and said if
No,
the Knicks have
from
the
a
best
fan
offer, you would think
perspective.
about it, but you have to think of the pushback you would get.
You think Pat Riley gives a fuck what the fans think?
Yes,
If he
I
makes the
do
best-
think.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, everybody does. Everybody, you have to consider what your market's going to
doesn't.
do as a result.
For the
especially for an 80-year-old man
127
like
loyal Heat fans.
okay. See, this is where the New Yorkers talking down to South Florida, which
Duff,
I know
you
I'm the
could
pot calling the
sense-
kettle black here, but still, like
You could sense how angry those few dedicated Heat fans were when they were getting drowned out by Knicks cheers in the arena tonight.
Yeah.
Because there's always more Knicks fans than Heat fans down there. It is a
There's-
disgraceful fan base.
there's more Knicks fans. No, well, okay, I'm not going to push back on that. There's
It
more
is a
Knicks fans in Orlando.
disgrace
There's
that
more
that
Knicks
team-
fans in Atlanta. There's more Knicks fans like everywhere, John. We
Yeah,
travel
but,
well.
like,
It's more
but
of
they have-
comments
they
on
have-
Knicks fans than it is Miami Heat fans.
But they have wasted the preeminent Eastern Conference, at least, basketball franchise of since Riley went there on a fan base that they don't deserve that team. It's a joke.
See, and that's how you reverse psychology, Benji. I got John to make fun of South Florida sports fans.
You guys have been together a long time.
Yeah, it works. All right, let's get to the super chats. Thank you. He's so mad at me right now.
Oh, the moment of the game was the intro.
Yeah. Well, so do you have like a specific play?
Oh, the
'Cause-
only great play was the Brunson to Randall lob, which was an insane catch.
Yes.
Finished by Randall. Legit
threw
insane.
it behind him. Yeah,
that was a
I agree.
wildly incredible athletic feat. I just wanted to shout that play out because it was
And-
really cool. But that's about it. That's all I
There was,
got.
there was also that possession where they got 2 offensive rebounds and a steal on one possession that ended with
Yes.
Grimes' layup.
That was good too.
That was good, too.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, guys.
All right,
Have a
thanks,
lot of
Benji.
fun.
Thank you, Benji.
Don't stop bickering, the two of you. Bye.
Old married couple. We are.
All right, shall we?
I love you.
I love you too.
There we go.
All right. Hope the energy's not too bad tonight. We'll see what happens.
I should clarify. Everything's on fire. Also, the first shout out Alex from the Land of Enchantment. The first super
in-
chat was
yeah.
before the game.
I saw him. He tweeted some at Robert. Alex, shout out to you for starting us off. Game tips off in about an hour. Prescription for your Miami PTSD. A nice scotch. I am enjoying a nice glass of bourbon, courtesy of Ray Marcano, actually, today's podcast guest, who was kind enough to send me a bottle of what I think now is my favorite bourbon, which, of course, I think it's Starlight is the name of it. It's whatever it is. It's incredible. Wait, hold on. I didn't read the rest of that. Imbibe, enjoy, relax, smile. Hashtag casual crew. Hashtag Macri Mush. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, I won the week, didn't I? Oh, it sucks. Robert Cross, it's your boy. Say it loud for those in the back. F these refs. Hashtag 53 wins. Hashtag Eastern Conference Finals. Dark Horse. You know, I thought of you, Robert. Tonight, Fred Katz tweeted out, it's a shame that we're not going to get these 2 teams in a playoff series. And the first thought that popped into my head was, what are you talking about, Fred? Eastern Conference Finals. They're the 5 and the 6. They romp through the Eastern Conference, pulling upset after upset. And they meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's going to happen. Frank Miranda, what's going on, Frank? What's up, Mac? It's your boy Frank from Patreon. I'm sending this on a Heat timeout with 3:41 left in the 4th. This is where Tibbs detractors get loud. Him sitting Grimes for this long is inexcusable. Inexcusable, plain and simple. Yeah, it's a judgment call. It's a judgment call, as all of these sorts of coach things are. I think, you're always going to be able to second guess when you lose. And as Andrew was saying, this is not the sort of second guessing where you get to the end of the game and you look back and you're like, well, we could have done this differently. You could have done that differently. Because, Frank, as you're putting this, you did it in the moment. So I don't begrudge you. I don't begrudge anybody who thinks that Grimes should have been in there earlier. But the fact remains that like the guy you had in there, Josh Hart, was in there for a reason. He's the best chance of trying to stop Jimmy Butler defensively. He's a guy who's hit a million big shots for you since he's got here. Hit some big shots tonight. And like he's a guy that makes things happen. He's a guy that makes splash plays. And when you're down, you kind of need splash plays. You need something. You need a spark. And he's the best spark provider that you have, which is kind of why I think that he's always in there at the end of games, because Tibbs trusts that he's going to make something happen. It didn't happen tonight, Maybe it would happen if they called the proper call on that Jimmy Butler, what should have been called a travel. But it's fair. It's fair. You lose, everything's fair game. Dominic Manzi, what's going on, Dominic? We weren't prepared to play through RJ on a night like tonight because it hasn't come together like this for him very often. In the future, we need to be. That's an interesting one. I wish Benji was still here for that. So like the notion of basically kind of like shifting what you do, as the evidence comes about. I think that's very fair. We've also seen them go to RJ more in second halves when he's got it going, but those are also games where it feels like they went to him a lot in the first half and he didn't have it going. I don't know. I mean, look, he took 13 shots. Randall took 16. Now, granted, Randall's coming off the third highest scoring game in franchise history, so, that is what it is. Brunson took 16 shots, but he was 10 of 16 from the field, So it's like, it's tough to, and he's your point guard. And like, I didn't mind any of the shots that Brunson took. Grimes took 12. I think it's tough. I agree with you. RJ has to get more shots on a night like tonight. At the same time, I'm looking at the shot charts, and it's not like I'm looking at Randall took 20-something shots or even Brunson or, Quickly was 1 of 8. That's not ideal, but how often were those guys on the floor together? And I feel like the minutes that Quickly and RJ shared the floor in the fourth quarter were the best offensive stretch that they had. So I have no complaints during those minutes as well. So it's tough. It's just tough that teams got a lot of guys that feel very comfortable with the ball in their hands. I'll say that. Thanks, Dominic. Will Oliver, just an incredibly frustrating game start to finish. Yeah, that's a fair take. Frustrating game. I'm dealing with this particularly, especially well, because since the Minnesota game, I'm like, they're not winning that Miami game. I just had a feeling. Never for a second that I think they were winning this game, even when they were up in the fourth quarter. But yeah, it doesn't make it any less frustrating. Jesse M, they're really going to blow this, aren't they? No. Don't go there yet. Don't go there. Like, look, we are just like, say this out loud. We're 74 games into a season where, no less than 5 times, I want to say 4 or 5 times, this team has had their backs absolutely up against the wall. Absolutely up against the wall. And they have come through with a win that they had absolutely no business getting. Now, they can secure the 5 seed without coming up with one of those wins. Like, they can lose that next Miami game. They can even lose the Cleveland game and the Miami game. But if you do that, you may need to win all of your other remaining games. May need to win. It depends on what Miami does, and it depends on what Brooklyn does, which is why it's a little bit too early to have these conversations. But look, Jesse, I'd be lying to you if I haven't had the same fear creep into my mind. And for as much as I was not confident about this game tonight, I think to look at this team and look at what they've done through 74 games and say no, they're going to blow it. That's disrespectful to what they've done, So keep the faith. Thanks, Jesse. Robert with another one. First time, long time, John. It feels like there's a minutes logjam here with RJ, Grimes, Quickly, and Hart. You think? Does Tibbs reassess here down the stretch? Hashtag 53 wins. Hashtag Eastern Conference Finals dark horse. And that's not even bringing up your boy Deuce, who I know you want to still get minutes in the rotation. I know other people still want minutes in the rotation. Yeah, there's a logjam. They got, which is why. And it's so funny that this is the response that you've elicited from me, which is the absolute last response that you want because you don't want anybody to talk about this. But why, in all likelihood, if there is a opportunity for them to make a consolidation trade this summer in which they upgrade the top end talent, they're going to do that because guess what, Robert? And I'm giving you shit because we talk about this a lot. That's what 29 other GMs would do. Because if you look at it objectively and you take the emotion out of it and you take your attachment away from these specific players and you just look at a situation where it's like, oh my God, we have 4 really, 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 really good freaking wings here. And there kind of isn't enough minutes for all of them, or at least how many the minutes they deserve. What should we do? Well, guess what? If there's a chance to get a guy who's better than all of them and you have to do a 2-for-1, plus draft picks, like you're going to do it. The question is that trade going to materialize itself? And then, by the way, and this is where Deuce comes in, the fact that you do have a Deuce McBride sitting there and can't even get on the court is yet another reason why you feel comfortable doing something like that, But you're not going to get an answer down the stretch. The answer down the stretch is like you're going to have games where it's like, how does that guy not get on the court in the last 5 minutes? And it's like, oh, because we have these other guys. Frank Miranda with another one. Thank you, as always, for your generosity, Frank. Mac, what's up? It's your boy, Frank from Patreon. Tibbs not challenging that offensive foul in Hardenstein when Brunson hit the 3 was a huge momentum killer. Could have been a game changer. Hashtag Tibbs tunnel vision. We're picking nits at replay reviews. It's not where I'm just not capable of focusing my energy there unless it's like, again, if it's blatant, you challenge it. But as we talked about at the top of the show, there's all kinds of reasons why you at least reconsider. And again, this is what I always go back to. Was it in retrospect probably the wrong decision because you didn't end up using your challenge? Absolutely. But if anything, the one that I want to criticize more is and I think they could have challenged it, is the foul call on Jimmy Butler, which even that though was tough because it seemed like it was a travel, but then after that, there was contact on the arm, which is why the replay stuff is like, and why NBA refereeing in general is it's so frustrating because there's so little consistency that if you're Tibbs, and this is more a critique of the refs than a defensive Tom, like what confidence do you have that, if I challenge this based on X, Y, and Z, I know I'm going to get. No, you don't have any of that confidence because the refereeing is so shitty. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate you. Robert Cross, what's going on again, Robert? Thank you for pulling through with some super chats here. It's your boy, John. I'd like to declare all of KFS RJ Barrett can ball. Remember that. You too, Kevin. Hashtag 53 wins. Hashtag Eastern Conference Finals dark horse. Was it his best game of the season? It was up there offensively. 26 points on 13 shots. That's incredible for him in particular, a guy who had tough inefficiency moments. There was precisely one play in the entire game that I had an issue with on offense with RJ. And that was the turnover. It was the turnover where it was just like he kind of dribbled into 2 guys and it wasn't great. One play. Whereas every other player quickly, Brunson, Randall, it's like you could criticize them for all sorts of things. Brunson, the turnovers, Randall, just some not great shots. Quickly, obviously a lot of misses. RJ, as perfect a game as he's going to play offensively. And as Benji said at the top, thought defensively he was good. And it's been leading up to this. He's been playing well, which is, again, what makes it so frustrating that they've now lost 2 in a row because of the freaking defense. Because RJ's doing exactly what we were all like, oh, my God, if RJ could just do this team could actually really talk themselves into an Eastern Conference Finals run. Well, now he's doing it, and the defense is becoming an issue. Chris, what's going on, Chris? A Tips team out of gas and unable to defend down the stretch of a season. Who could have seen this coming? My playoff worries are very real now. That's a bad comment. It's a bad comment because it ignores 2 years worth of history in which the Thibodeau teams that we've watched picked up steam down the stretch defensively. They improved defensively down the stretch of the season. And you could say a lot of things about last year. That team didn't run out of gas. You could say a lot of things about the team before. They got absolutely smoked by the Hawks in the playoffs. Go look at their defensive rating in that series. And then after you're done with that, go look at the Hawks' defensive rating in the subsequent series that they played against two pretty good defenses in Philadelphia and Milwaukee. And go compare all those things. And go look at how the Knicks did a better job defensively on that Hawks team than anybody else was able to. They didn't lose that series because of defense. They lost that season because of offense. Again, I'm fine with the valid criticisms. I'm fine. Frank, you want to talk about should have been a challenge. You want to talk about should have subbed in Grimes, whatever. The overgeneralizations on a coach that just certain people are never going to like is what will absolutely infuriate me. And it's nonsense. So just stop. Okay? Will. I mean, Jesus Christ, the man has already coached the team to how many more wins than they're expected preseason total? And it's we have 7 games left, 8 games left, whatever it is. Will Oliver. I need Grimes as involved on off the rest of the way. I don't know what I think you just mean you need Grimes involved. Yeah, I thought it was really meaningful. If I'm going to take away one big picture positive from this game, it is that Grimes specifically coming off of a game in which he took one shot, which I said 2 nights ago, and I'll say again, is like, you can't have that. Like, Grimes is so important to this offense. His shooting is so important. You need him to not only be out there as a threat, you need him to actually shoot. You know, coming off that game, I don't know if it's that somebody said something to him. I don't know if the team got together and was like, listen, man, we got to get this guy shots. Whatever it was, I don't care. The fact that he came out and he fired away 12 times, 10 from long range tonight in 25 minutes. Really, 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 really important. And again, we talk about how much RJ Barrett's growth is instrumental for this team and for them to accomplish what they want to accomplish going down the stretch. Quentin Grimes continuing to take shots and be a big part of the offense is nearly as important. So completely agree there. Will, thank you. Drew P. Post Boston, you think teams plan for IQ causing his slump? No, I don't think so. I think he's had good games since Boston. He had a few good games in a row, actually. I think it's just like the last 2. And I think I definitely think he's making teams game plans more for sure. But I think some of it is just kind of maybe, I don't know. He seems a little jittery to me on offense the last couple games. He's also just not making shots. He's had good looks. His last 5 minutes of the Wolves game were very bad. But the nice thing about IQ is you don't have to worry about him long term. Like, yeah, it's a concern maybe for this season to some extent. But again, it goes back to the nice thing about these Knicks, which is that, okay, if teams are keying in on Emmanuel quickly more, well, then there's some other outlet. Something else has to be open or have opened up because of that, because they have so much talent. And again, is it the elite talent? No, but they have so much quality depth that even if teams are playing quickly differently or whatever, maybe it takes them a little time to adjust. Maybe that's a little bit of what we're seeing, but I don't worry about that being a problem long term and honestly not even down the stretch of this year. Stevens Guillaume. Very fair comment. I know it's not the only reason they lost, but man, was the officiating horrendous tonight. Yeah. It was really bad. It was very bad. And I do think, previous 2 games between these 2 teams have come down to the last possession. This one did not. I think if the officiating was fair tonight, we would have gotten a third Knicks Heat game that came down to the last possession. True statement. What's going on? True statement. Maybe it's not a bad thing becoming the 6th seed. Would you rather Cavs, then Bucks, or 76ers, then Celtics. Love the pod. Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it. We work hard on it. All of us do. Andrew works harder than anybody. I'm gonna push back on that in this sense. Again, as you know, I'm big on narrative, and I do think the fact that the narrative of this season up until now, even after this game, has been so positive. And I think if they fell down to the 6th seed and they lost, the narrative would maybe be slightly negative. I don't know how it would be negative, but it would be like, man, Knicks really would have been able to give that Cavs team a run for their money. Instead, they fall to 6 and they lose in the first round. Andrew's saying even when he gets on your nerves. Andrew never gets on my nerves. I like messing around with Andrew. Anyway, so like it brings into play a level of negativity that even if they lose to the Cavs in the 4-5, I'm not. Then again, if they get to the 4-5 and they lose to the Cavs and Donovan Mitchell has a great series, that might be the worst. that actually might be the worst narrative. I just don't like the idea of them like backing into the playoffs and like limping into the playoffs and then losing a first round series. Like that, to me, that would probably leave the worst taste in my mouth. I like the idea of them going in, winning 1 or 2 more big games down the stretch, getting that 5 seed that we know that they want, and then, just playing a competitive first round series, and then whatever happens, happens. I understand I'm going on this big rant, and that's not really what you're asking. You're just asking, like, is it possible we just have a better chance of beating Boston than the Cavs? Man, that Boston team might be fracturing before our eyes, but they are also... there are things specifically about the Cavs matchup that I like. And I like that they do have... their perimeter defense is a little leaky. I like that they have a hiding spot in the starting lineup. That's a big... we just spent the first 15 minutes of the show talking about how teams targeting Brunson. Well, guess who's the one team that can't do that? It's Cleveland, because they just don't have... I mean, Karis LeVert, okay. I kind of welcome that. I would love to see them try to run their offense through Karis LeVert and not Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And by the way, I think, Benji said it, like, Brunson has to be better. I think Brunson is capable of, like, defending Darius Garland. I think he's up for that challenge. I don't know. It's an interesting question. It really is. It's an interesting question. All that said, if you get the 5 seed, you get the 5 seed, to me.
Can I add something to this, please?
Please, yeah.
So, let me say this as a New York Mets fan. You do not want to have my team blew an X game lead with X games to play.
They're a 2.5 game lead.
They were up 4 with 10 to play, is what I'm saying. That becomes the narrative. We blew a 4-game lead with 10 games to play.
Hold on, they were up 4 on the Heat with 10 to play.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he's just saying fall down,
they've never gone up more
than
2.5 on 6.
So if that's what you're saying, that's different. My point is I'm emphasizing your point that you don't want to erase any of the good juju that you've built.
Yeah.
And if you go from 5 to 6 because you blew a 4-game lead on Miami with 10 to play, you avoid that Donovan Mitchell matchup.
We're also not even talking about the doomsday scenario, which is they fall to 7 and somehow either don't make it out of the play-in or like lose a play-in game, and then they get to 8th and then they get smoked by the Bucks. Like, yeah. I don't even want to talk about that. But yeah, I'm not talking about that.
And to true statements, which Pat Riley Avi is distracting. For those on YouTube, you understand what I'm talking about. To put some people's minds at ease that might be looking at the ledge or ready to jump out the window, whatever. Miami is a much different road team than they are a home team, especially this season. 5 of their final 8 games are on the road. So if that puts any ease at you, fine. This is the team that lost in Chicago this weekend, and Pat Beverly went on a 14-0 run. Shout out Sean with the W for pointing that out. They needed all 48 minutes to beat a tanking Detroit Pistons team on the road this weekend.
You're right. And the next two teams they play, by the way, they play Brooklyn on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
The next two teams they play after that, well, they play in Toronto. Toronto's still fighting, and Toronto's in playing position, so Toronto's going to be playing that game to win. So that is a tough game. Then they come to us. Then they play Dallas at home. Dallas lost tonight. Who the hell knows what's going on there? Here are the next three, though. At Detroit, at Philly, at Washington. So Washington, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to Washington. Washington went bye-bye to this season.
Yeah, they're the Portland Trailblazers of 2023.
Which, by the way, is good for us because guess who we played on the stretch? We played Washington. And Detroit, I mean, they're going to be playing you and me by the time that game happens. It's the one game is the Philly game, and my worry about Philly, even the third to last game of the season, I don't know what situation Philly is going to be in terms of we got this Harden injury now. Embiid, you never know. Is there are they going to rest him? Is it a little nick where they're like, we'd rather have Embiid healthy going into the playoffs? So it's like, all of a sudden you're looking at that Miami-Philly game, and you're like, shit, the Heat better lose that game, because other than that, what game do you really feel great about them losing? Again, if we take care of business against Miami in New York next week, we don't have to talk about any of this. But there's a lot of pressure on that game. That was the point I made after the last game. It's the point I'm making now.
15-21 on the road with a negative 2.6 net rating for the season.
Then listen,
I'm trying to provide some soothing, calm statistics that will help people feel better tonight.
I will be rooting like hell for the Raptors before that next game. I'll say that.
I agree.
Okay. Kevin, what's going on, Kev? The defense has to be better, yes. And I'm worried about the standings, but we got buzzsawed to death by 2 straight teams and 2 straight bad whistles. Get them tomorrow. Yeah, I forgot about the whistle in the Minnesota game. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a resilient team. You get the Minnesota game, Taurean Prince, as Andrew said, most efficient game in NBA history. It happens. You understand this game. You lost to a good team on the road that wanted it, and Jimmy Butler was on one. Go into Orlando tomorrow. Not saying it's going to be easy. Go win that game. That's all. Go win that game. Danny Gardner, what's going on, Danny? Thank you as always, my man. The refs were atrocious in the fourth. If only we could challenge. Grimes should have been in the fourth, refusing to run any offense through RJ killed them. I have, this is my only pushback, Danny, on this one. They scored 120 points tonight against a team that gives up the fewest points in the league. So to say that, offense was the problem, I understand the offense was not perfect. I understand there were stretches where they did not score baskets. But, it's tough for me to be too harsh on that. We've talked about the Grimes Hart thing. Again, I think it's valid. I think that's at least valid. The RJ thing is more, for me, it's more big picture. Like, you look up and RJ had the game that he did and he took only 13 shots. And by the same token, as I did before, I want to praise him for that, for continuing to play within himself and not forcing the issue. And look, and this is kind of where I'm struggling. We talk about RJ a lot and we're like, man, if he could just eliminate those 3, 4, 5 just awful decisions. And then you look up tonight and you're like, okay, he had 1 bad turnover and I don't think he had any bad shots. So is it the fact that he was just picking and choosing his spots? And again, I have to go back and rewatch the fourth quarter. I'm sure there were possessions where he either didn't touch the ball or he wasn't meaningfully involved in the offense. And I know that's what you're focusing on here. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but the fact that we aren't looking at, he had 5 assists and 3 turnovers. Okay. But you'll take that from RJ anytime. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Defense is the issue. And the refereeing was bad. Dan Hidalgo, back-to-back games, Brunson was hunted It feels like the playbook to exploit the Knicks defense is out. Yeah, Benji talked about it. They have to solve it, and Brunson needs to be better. Both things. And it's also a little bit matchup stuff, but also like if Gabe Vincent's the one cooking you now, the Vincent the Vincent step back is like, look, again, as Benji said, if Vincent's going to do that's fine. It's the other stuff. And Benji had another tweet about this a few minutes ago, which I'll retweet now. But like, there's stuff you live with, and then there's stuff you don't live with, and the difference between eliminating the stuff that you can't live with and dealing with the stuff that you can live with, that's the difference between wins and losses in games like this. So, yeah. And before I read Hamdy's comment, this is quite a stat. The Knicks have allowed 57% overall shooting and 57% three-point shooting in consecutive games. They're the first team to do that since the Pistons in January of 2010. Before that, it hadn't been done since 1993, and that was a different era. The Sixers allowed 7 of 10 three-point shooting and then 4 of 4. Also, Randall had some complaints about the officiating in this game. Okay, Hamdy M. The Heat are a frustrating team to play. Yeah, it's because they're good. They draw fouls, and they defensively they have very active hands. Ugh. Yeah. Retweeting what Benji said, which is my point here. Yeah, they're a tough matchup. I always think they're a tough matchup. I was texting Jeff earlier to Frank Barrett on Twitter over at the Strickland earlier tonight, and I was like, how does this team have the record they have? You know, how are they not better? And I think that one, they don't always shoot like this. And again, that's part of the Knicks defense, but I think it's also a big part of the fact they just haven't shot very well this year. Lowry's coming off the bench. He was starting for a lot of this year, and he's been bad, or he had been bad. He's better now. And like, frankly, I don't know that Jimmy, does Jimmy bring this level every night? I think he kind of does, but I think he had something extra tonight. You know, like they just played really well. Thanks, Andy. Dom the Dentist, in order of reasons we lost. 1, defense. 2, poor play by our stars. 3, refs. 4, refs. 5, refs. I like it. Yeah, I like the Brunson thing. Like, again, Brunson had 21 or 26 points on 16 shots. Like, it's tough to 25 points on 16 shots. It's tough to say that's a poor game from him for as much. We're just not used to the turnovers. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of like point guards and lead ball handlers in this league where they look up and they have 5 turnovers, you don't bat an eyelash. Then again, those guys are also making stuff happen in terms of like throwing guys open and whatnot that Brunson doesn't do either. So like from that perspective, it really was a poor game in that specific area. Randall was just not a good game for Randall. So yeah. Jessica, what's going on, Jessica? How are you? I was worried about this going in. I hope they tighten up the defense for Orlando. They're all must-wins remaining now. Great Grimes game, good RJ game. I would say great RJ game and great Grimes game. Both of them I thought played great. I don't know who my third star is going to be tonight. That's going to be interesting. Might go Brunson. I mean, I diverted course yesterday. I gave all 6, or 2 days ago, I gave all 6 stars to Julius. I might split them evenly between Barrett and Grimes. Kevin Danishevsky, positive note. I kept the receipts on the Quentin Grimes hate. That was always ridiculous. Kevin, you and I both know Quentin Grimes is going to be good. He is good. He's going to keep getting better. So. Ed Paolo, what's going on, Ed? Refs absolutely horrendous. RJ being guarded by Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry, and we didn't take advantage. Again, could he have shot more shots? Absolutely. Did they leave a little bit on the table there? Yes. Still scored 120 points. It's not why he lost. Alex, maybe one more nice glass of scotch, John. No, I'll do fine with one tonight. If they won the game, I probably would have given myself a refill. I'm more the person that drinks more when they're happy, not when they're not happy, which probably a good thing being a Knicks fan. So yeah, just one glass tonight. Thanks, Alex. Dom, what's going on, Dom? Don't get discouraged, Dom. I'm going to say that before I even read your comment. Just one tonight. Is it time to be concerned about our defense for the playoffs, or wait and see if it's Swiss cheese versus Orlando and Houston? Back to bed, depressed again. This freaking team. Well, look, I think it's a little bit. I mean, look, Orlando's solid. They are not Miami. And they have a guy in Markelle Fultz who has been playing the best ball of his career. He's top 20 points 3 times in the last 7 games. Had a career high, I believe, against the Clippers, who are not a great defensive team either right now. But he doesn't shoot it from outside. He doesn't shoot it. So, you should be. That said, the freaking Magic are huge. They put a lot of size out there, even though Bol's not in the rotation anymore right now. Like, that'll be a test. But, like, even if they come out and they do play defensively or defend better against those two teams, I'm not going to be like, oh, the defensive issues are solved. I still think whoever they play in the playoffs is going to, have a say. But if they come out and they defend poorly against Orlando and Houston, and I don't want to say, God forbid, they lose one of those games, because, like, again, that game tomorrow is going to be tough. But yeah, you better defend well in those 2 games. Show something better than you did the last 2. Helmer Pacheco, what's going on, Helmer? We just had our first taste of the playoffs, and the Knicks have shown they lacked playoff intensity and emotional intelligence. Who stepped up when Brunson and Randall got pressed on defense? So again, it's not about someone stepping up. It's just about playing, like, being smart, playing on a string, not over helping, just Brunson being better, all that sort of stuff. I don't know that I watched a team tonight that lacked intensity. I thought they were plenty intense. I mean, they had a lead on the road in the fourth quarter, like, the refs didn't help them, and the team made a lot of shots, and they defended poorly. I didn't feel like intensity was an issue. And emotional intelligence, I don't know where you're getting that from, quite frankly. I know Randall got a tech. It's not great, but I think they're pretty emotionally intelligent. I think you should go watch some other teams around the league, even good ones, and get back to me on the emotional intelligence thing. I think this team has been pretty emotionally intelligent tonight and throughout the season. Thanks, Elmer. Hank Hootenboss, please put Randall in a Jalen trade. Oh, my God. One night after the man scores 57 points, we want to put him in a Jalen Brown trade? No, thank you. Next. Ben, what's going on, Ben? How are you, my man? We lose when we get less than 11 offensive rebounds. That's the key to our game. And both Miami and Minnesota exploited it. Hashtag 47 wins. Hashtag thanks, Cap. I completely agree. Offensive but here's the weird thing, right? Is like the last Miami game to a certain extent, but even this game, like, I don't know what their effective field goal percentage was in this game, but I guarantee you the Knicks' effective field goal percentage tonight, with 51% overall and 40% from deep, is much better than their season average. The reason the offensive rebounding is so important is because they miss. Like, they don't make a lot of shots. So that's why that's important. The low turnovers is important, and why getting to the free throw line is important. The thing that I think is the bigger issue against Miami, and look, the Knicks took 25 free throws tonight, and the Heat took 26. So it was a 1 free throw difference. That said, Randall said it after the game, he got to the line 1 time, which in his estimation was not good enough. Like, they're clearly comfortable playing a certain way. Now, 16 turnovers, that is a problem. So, like, if you're not going to get offensive rebounds, which they didn't really get tonight, they only got 9, and you're going to turn the ball over, that's 2 of the boxes they usually check. So even though you checked the effective field goal percentage box tonight, and even though you got to the line a decent amount, but probably not as much as you could have. So you checked like 1.5 boxes tonight. Like, that's not great. And yet, they scored 120 points. Defense. Defend better. Thanks, Ben. Philly J, what's going on, Philly? We're the ones who are up 2 on the 6th seed with 8 to go. That's a tested squad. Thank you. Big picture, guys. Focus on the playoffs and the Cavs. Let's pick our heads up, please. Yeah, I mean, again, it's the PTSD. It's strong. I get it. They're in a good spot. You'd rather be the Knicks than any of the teams that are chasing the Knicks. You just got to take care of business down the stretch starting tomorrow. Not saying tomorrow is a must-win game. Not saying that. But that would go a long way to settling things down, shall we say. Alex with another one. Are we sure Brunson is healthy? He looks bad on defense and offense. Again, I got to push back on you there, Alex. I get he turned the ball over 5 times tonight, one of which was on a charge call. So like 4 like traditional turnovers and then that. 25 points on 16 shots is pretty good. Like I thought he looked good. I mean, a couple of the I actually think what did he shoot from 3? 2 of 6 from 3. So from 2-point range, he was 8 of 10. He made 8 of 10 twos. I think he's okay. Defensively, he just needs to be better. Now, granted, is it a different test on your body defensively than offensively? And maybe he's favoring the foot defensively. That I think is fair. That's fair. Is that like a matter of like, I don't want to injure myself before the playoffs and I'll turn it on when I need to? That would be my guess, but who knows? So I guess you're not off base. To me, it threw me off. Like he looks bad on offense, and he's a 6-foot guard that was 8 of 10 from inside the arc. Juanon, what's going on, Juanon? I wish I had one of those Men in Black thingies to block this game from my memory. Come on, it wasn't that bad. I hate losing to the Heat. I'm not panicking though, as I suggest all of you not do as well. We're fine. Yep, I'm here for that energy. It's a loss. Losses all stink, but you roll with the punches, right? Zach, what's going on, Zach? Zach Horowitz. I think I have to stop watching the Heat games. It's not really basketball. The amount of insane offensive foul calls on New York while Miami moving screens, every possession is unreal. What a joke game. Let's go Knicks. Miami has figured out a way to get the refereeing that benefits them. And I don't know if it's something that they practice, something that they preach down there, hashtag Heat culture, whatever it is. I don't know if Pat Riley's paying off all the refs. No, but I don't think that's what it is. I do think like there's a reason they get these calls. It's kind of a play style thing, and they bring us. I don't know if I want to say it's the mentality and the energy they bring. I do think it's a technique thing too, with some of this stuff where they're subtle about the things that they do, or subtle enough at least. I don't know. I get your frustration, Zach. I totally get your frustration, but I mean, if you want to bring it back to just NBA refereeing being such an imperfect science, because it is, I don't know. It's just not something I usually get worked up about. But tonight was bad. Ryan, what's going on, Ryan Wong? I need Mitch to get right for these closing lineups to work. He's the defensive anchor, and the offensive rebounds are crucial for ISO ball. God, I hate the Heat. Yeah, I mean, Mitch did get 4 offensive boards tonight, we should say. So that's, it's not bad. You'd like him to get more, but he's also playing Bam Adebayo. Was he great tonight? No, I agree with Benji. To me, it was the pick and roll defense that was the biggest culprit, for sure. So, yeah. Jesse, what's going on, Jesse? I'm frightened of falling to play in for the simple fact that any team could have an outstanding shooting night like Minnesota. Season could be over in a heartbeat. Oh my God! I mean, you want to talk about nightmare scenarios? I just saw before that the Hawks, poor Hawks, such a shame. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. They lost on some Karl Anthony Towns free throws. It's just such a shame. Such a shame. But anyway, the Hawks, who I hate, from the city of Atlanta, which I don't care for, they are in 8th, a game ahead of Toronto, who is only a half game ahead of Chicago. So Toronto and Chicago are coming. That all that being said, the notion of falling to the play-in would be, to be very clear, an unmitigated disaster for this team, because it would involve, in all likelihood, losing twice to the Heat down the stretch, losing at least one, if not more, games that you are quote unquote supposed to win. And it would involve the narrative of like not only the Heat passed you, but the Nets passed you after they traded their star players. And then if you ever lost that playing game, oh my God. Whether it's to, I mean, Atlanta would be the worst, but like it really wouldn't even matter. And then if you fell, even if you fell down to 8th and then like you won the second playing game and you like, it would be a disaster. That's what they have to avoid. Hey Shane, what's going on, Asian Ferg? Defensive scheme isn't the problem. I agree. We're not executing. I agree. Jalen, I always agree with you, Haitian. Jalen being out and back may have ruined the defensive chemistry. Luckily, we have off days coming up to fix this with practice. We have to get right on defense. I'm thinking more about what Alex said before about Brunson maybe not being right. Defensively, is he favoring something? Is that why he's not his full self? I don't know. I don't know. But because when the point of attack is so weak, which it is weak right now, everything else is a trickle-down effect. And I understand other guys aren't as locked in. Not locked in is the wrong word. As crisp as they need to be. But, and like Mitch, that is part of that too. Like they depend on him to be great so much. Hardenstein too, even in his minutes. So, yeah, they got to clean it up. Thanks, Haitian. Todd, RJ also kicking out much more. Guys don't hit a lot. Yeah, Todd, I thought RJ's passing was maybe even better than his shot making tonight. His passing's been really great for a while now. It's probably the most encouraging thing, because the thing that bothered me the most for most of the season was taking shots when the pass was obviously there. And he's not doing that anymore. He's making the obvious pass. And if he's going to do that, the defense is good enough. He's giving you everything you want right now. And yes, guys missed some passes off. We should have had more assists. Kevin Danishevsky, tonight feels like a night we could have used a jumbo wing. And again, I think that gets back to a lot of people's comments on RJ. Like, you have a jumbo wing. His name is RJ Barrett. Run the offense more through him. But I think it's more defensively, right? And for as much as RJ's defense has improved, I still don't think defensively he is at the point where it's like you don't feel comfortable putting him on a Jimmy Butler. And honestly, I'm not sure that you should. Like, RJ kind of lacks that physicality on defense. Like the possession that I think Benji was referencing, it's the one that sticks out in my mind where like, and Breen had said on the broadcast, like RJ played good defense, but Butler just made a better shot, like where RJ kind of went straight up. Like, again, I use this term a lot with RJ on defense. Like he did not make Jimmy Butler feel him on defense there. Whereas during that stretch was late in the third quarter. Yeah, it was after the Randall Tech. So it was 88-77. And then there were at least 2, and I want to say 3 possessions over that next several minute stretch where Jimmy Butler got the ball, and my God, did they brought everything. And they were like, it was selective doubling and like just physicality. They brought physicality. And they they got in his shit and he missed a bunch of shots and it helped him get back in the game. Like RJ's, it's tough for him to do that, you know? So like you're wrong. You're not wrong. But it's tough. But RJ was really good tonight. Austin Z, what's going on, Austin? What I'm loving most about RJ's play recently is the maturity he's showing with his approach. Completely agree. Picking apart defenses deliberately instead of just barreling in. Yes, 100% yes. And I think this is why more than like, there are some, I'm not naming any names. There are some RJ supporters out there who will like go and try to like concoct fake stats to prove to you like why RJ is playing well when he's clearly not playing well. I don't care about those people. The people that I care about and that I listen to are people like Mensa, you know, who are like, look, I'm not going to sit here and be like RJ Barrett's been good this year, but you don't talk even about trading a guy who has shown you what he has shown you and who has grown in the ways he has grown. Like, you don't give up on that. And I think what we're seeing now from RJ, this improved play, is why people like Mensa are so spot on with this stuff, where it's like, again, I know it's frustrating. I know it's his fourth year. I know the team is ready to win now. When he doesn't play, and he hasn't played well this year, it has stuck out because the rest of the team has played so well around him. But like since the All-Star break, he's had one bad half, really. First half against the Clippers. That's it. The rest of his play has been really great, or at least good. So yeah, completely agree. I agree. It's maturity and we're seeing more growth right before our eyes. Duran visual variant. What's going on, Duran? I think coaches are more likely to challenge plays that take or put points on the board, not save the possession. And tell you what, put Jimmy Buckets on our roster and we're a title contender this year. Well, yes, I agree with you on the challenge thing, which I think is why some people wanted him to challenge the Hardenstein offensive foul, which again, the pushback is, would it really have been overturned? I don't think it would have been. As far as putting Jimmy on this team, I mean, I don't want. I just got done praising RJ Barrett for a great game, and he did have a great game, and he's been playing really well for weeks. And I just was like, this is why you don't trade him. All that said, just in a vacuum, if you put Jimmy Butler on this team, are they a championship contender? Fuck yes. Oh my God, are they ever? Kevin Danishevsky, my one criticism of Tibbs is that he always closes with heart. If you do that, he should start because 2 18-minute stretches must be tiring for an energy guy. It isn't that he always closes with heart. It's that if you do that, he should start. Yeah, I don't think he should start for Grimes, and he's not starting for RJ. I get it. I mean, maybe there's, but that really kind of requires you. Well, I mean, he didn't close with the first half with him tonight, for what it's worth. So I don't know. Do you get the sense that Hart ever gets tired? I don't know. I don't really get that sense. It's fair, though. And he might be starting next year. Remember, this is not the year. Next year's the year. Ed Paula, notice Mike Breen saying he heard from an assistant coach that they heard from assistant coaches that they love Deuce. I love to hear that. Yes, I paid attention to that. I paid attention to that when I heard it. And great job by you pointing that out. It's another reason why. Again, this is a guy that is under contract next year for no money. No money. If they make a trade that's a consolidation trade, and Deuce gets in the rotation, that's a good thing. All right. Thanks, Ed. All right. Busy. All right. Here we go. I know it's coming. We can point out all the reasons why we lost, but when Andrew points out a mistake from Tibbs on questionable substitutions, blasphemy. If I can give Tibbs flowers, J-Mac, you got to start giving blame. Blame is not a word. Blame. Yeah, I mean, look, when you lose a game, everyone is responsible. Players are responsible. The coach is responsible. What I try to do on here is offer the other side of the coin, because as I've told you, Busy, many times, I feel like the pushback, and it's not unique to the Knicks, and this is why it's become kind of a fun parlor game for Andrew every time he does one of these pregame pods, to talk to the opposing the guest about the opposing coach and how the opposing fan base views the opposing coach. And so far we are like 14 for 15 or something, where the guest is like, yeah, there's pretty big segment of the fan base that doesn't like this coach, with the one exception being Mike Brown with the Kings. Everybody does this. And if I was doing, Heat film school or Celtics film school or whatever, Sixers film school, pick any team, I'd have the same attitude, which is like, in general, I think too much of the blame goes towards this. It doesn't mean you can't blame the coach. It doesn't mean you can't point out things that went wrong. It doesn't mean you can't say that the substitution didn't work. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm my role on here, as far as I see it, is just to kind of be balanced. And by definition, I feel like, again, it's not unique to the Knicks fans. It's everywhere. The balance is a little out of whack sometimes in terms of the blame. That's all. Frank Miranda, what's up, Mac? It's your boy Frank from Patreon. Thoughts on Windhorst putting out that the Knicks have enough assets to trade for 2 stars? I don't think he's pulling that out of his rear end. Thoughts? I saw that. I didn't actually get a chance to listen to the pod yet, but I read the exact quotes. I was actually going to write about this for next week, but I'll say a few words now. Windhorst is never a guy who pulls anything out of his rear end. That said, and by the way, he's a guy that, and all of these big time reporters, and he's a reporter, which is why, like, please draw a distinction between a guy like Brian Windhorst and a guy like Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless, or like, I don't know who else like comments on the NBA. But like, Windhorst is a reporter and he talks to executives constantly. So like, I don't think he's like reporting that like the Knicks are going to trade for 2 stars this summer or whatever. But from, the people that he talks to around the league, I think there's clearly speculation like, man, the Knicks are set up to make 2 big moves. Will they? It depends on the marketplace. It depends who becomes available. It becomes, that we don't know those answers yet. From a logistical point of view, can they trade for 2 stars? Absolutely. Are they trading for like Joel Embiid and Luka Doncic? No, they don't have that asset base. And, and again, Windhorst's premise was like they could keep Randall and Brunson and trade for 2 stars. But like, depending on who the stars are, like, can they cobble together the salary? Absolutely, they could cobble together the salary. Do they have enough by way of total first-round picks and young players that if they really wanted to put it all on the table, could they? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think that's necessarily a good idea? Probably not. And again, we could talk about 100 different trade scenarios, and I could give you 100 different answers, but the notion of like ransacking this team's depth is not something I'm a fan of. I think there's probably a one trade maybe that makes more sense to me, and then a second, depending on what the second is. But I don't know. Thanks, Frank. Busy with another one. P.S. I need the RJ type energy when you start blaming Tibbs, J-Mac. Thanks. Tibbs has been really, really good for this year. He won the Coach of the Year 2 years ago, and he had a poor year last year. Last year, I criticized him a lot. And I praised RJ a lot because RJ was really good last year. This year, RJ has not been good, by and large. And Tibbs has been very good. So I'm not going to bring the same energy. Because, again, in addition to trying to be balanced on these things, I try to take the whole picture into perspective. And one of the things I'm very proud of, and obviously people disagree, a lot of content options out there. one of the things I'm very proud of is to try to keep things in perspective and to try to consider the whole. So I am going to always be more measured in praise of people who have not been good, and I'm always going to be more measured in my blame of people who I think have been good. That said, RJ, amazing night tonight. Awesome night. Best player of the game. One of his best games of the season. Thibodeau, I think he did some good things tonight in terms of countering Miami's zone offensively. Again, they scored 120 points. Tough to fault that. Defensively, like, is that on Tibbs? I don't know. Again, we're quibbling with the substitution. We're quibbling with like foul reviews. Not the sort of stuff that I get worked up over. So, that's just me. And then we got Jay. Bad coaching last 2 games. He will get out coached in the playoffs. What's his career playoff record? Again, you and I know the coach will not deliver. Well, I don't know that. I don't know that because this coach has never lost a playoff series that he's been favored in until, granted, the Hawks series. Every year with the, I don't know why people get on his coaching resume with the Bulls. Like, if anything, he outkicked his coverage with the Bulls. Like the series he won against the Nets, like the Nets were supposed to win that series. And I think, not saying Tibbs' coaching is what won them that series, but certainly was the better coach. And they advanced, and then they ended up losing to, I believe, I forget if that was the year the Heat won the championship or they just made it to the finals. But like, they gave the Heat hell for bunch of games, and they lost in 6. Yeah, I have faith in Tibbs, but that's me. Todd Rolick, thoughts on Lillard's fit on this team if he gets moved? Yeah, I saw his comments. Yeah, we're talking about Jalen Brunson's defense being an issue, and now we want to pair him with Damian Lillard. I think it's not the most ideal fit. That said, if they could go out and add a Damian Lillard to a team with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle and try to count on, whether it's Mitch, I imagine it would be Mitch, but like your defensive anchor, and then really getting, like, to me, that's the interesting conversation. Like, if you made that trade, do you have enough left over in the bank to trade for like OG Anunoby? Because OG Anunoby, if you want to talk about a wing defender that can help make your life livable with those 2 dudes. Now, you want to talk about the issue of there being only one ball. OG Anunoby allegedly wants to have a bigger role in the offense. Well, guess what? If he's on a team with Damian Lillard, Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle, he ain't having a big role in the offense. So, like, who's the wing defender that you get there? Because I don't think, maybe it's Josh Hart. But again, Josh Hart, we're talking about, he's a little under, he's not as big as you'd like your, like, primo wing defender to be. I don't know. It's tough. I'd have to, it depends on the price. Depends on the price tag. And like, Blazers aren't giving away for free. It wouldn't be my first look. I'll say that. It wouldn't be my first look if I'm trying to trade for a star. Red Sarachek, what's going on, Red? How are you? Finishing us off tonight. Hot take. I'm not worried. Players like Jalen Brunson, Quentin Grimes, and Josh Hart give us a vastly different playoff feel than what we had versus the Hawks. I completely agree. Mostly Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, just because Grimes hasn't been there yet. My number one question is whether we could switch the script on subs and off strategy and the offensive strategy as the series goes on. I can't say I'm worried a ton about this team's offense right now. I got to tell you, I'm not. Their offensive rating after this game is. Hold on, we haven't. This is the last super chat, so maybe Andrew wants to come up for this one.
Sure.
I didn't yell at anybody.
Proud of you.
Thanks, man. Growth.
Growth. Yes. Shout out Kelly from Insecure.
They have 116.5 offensive rating, which had it been done in any other year would be the greatest offense in history of basketball.
Yeah, there's a lot of that this year.
Yeah, it's fifth this year. But it's fifth. It's fifth behind Giannis Antetokounmpo, Boston's excuse me. Here, this is really the best, I think, the best. No, sorry, it's not fifth behind the Bucks. It's fifth behind the Kings, the Nuggets, the Sixers, and the Celtics. 3 of those teams have guys who will finish in the top 4 of the MVP voting, and the Kings are, I mean, just a juggernaut. So, like, I can't say I worry about them shifting up the offense. I thought they did a great job shifting up the offense tonight against the zone. Thought they passed it quickly. Thought they passed it wisely. Yeah.
I have no questions about their offense. I gotta be honest. Quickly missed some shots that he normally makes. Like
Quickly
Randall,
was 1 of 8 and they scored 120.
Right, like Randall missed some.
Oh, and
like,
Randall was terrible.
Yeah, like there was some shot selection in the third quarter that I had some issues with, but that's not that's not like the offensive system. I'm not picking nits. If it was 3 possessions, fine. I just knew there was a portion of the third quarter where I was like, so we're going 1-on-1 with Jimmy Butler. We're going 1-on-1 with Bam Adebayo.
It was I know that I'll tell you the 3 possessions. It was a fadeaway over Randall fadeaway over Bam Adebayo on the baseline. It was a pull-up 3 by Brunson over
Bam. It was either Bam or Butler, but that was the point. It was one of those 2.
And then it was a Randall mid-range kind of step back that was the least egregious of the 3, but it was still like we don't really need that shot there. It was those 3, and then quickly had 1 possession in the 4th. That was after the second unit offense had been brilliant for like 5 possessions in a row. That was like the one shot that like wasn't great.
Yeah.
Everything else, their offense was really good.
Yeah, and just to double down on your point, I think I've done 40, maybe 35 pregame pods. One has told me that they're happy with their head coach. Yeah. This is the thing. Every fan base hates their coach. It's honestly part of a reason why I thought the pregame pod would be great, was to get perspective. We had the Giancarlo's first time on here. He was like, there's a portion of the fan base that has fire Spo as a hashtag. Eric Spoelstra, who should have a lifetime contract, you know?
And like, again, just like full disclosure, I think it works for 2 reasons. The attitude that I take. One, and again, Andrew used to yell at me when he's like, you shouldn't tell people to go listen to other pods. But like, you want to talk about like counter programming. Like, there's a ton of people out there who get on various channels after Knicks games and yell and scream about the coach.
Mm-hmm. And we should not tell them to go someplace else, John.
No, don't go someplace else.
No, listen to us and our measured reaction.
But that's my point. Game. Is like, that's out there, number 1, and 2, frankly, like I don't want spoiler alert, that's not who I want to be. That's not what is naturally comes to me, and that's not my default. I am going to generally default towards trying to, again, see things. I think it's measured, but others might disagree.
We're not doing a full psychoanalysis of this tonight. I think in the first 5-10 minutes after a basketball game that you just watched, especially against the rival, you're going to react your most passionately one way or the other. Whether it's a win, you're going to go through the roof with optimism. If it's a loss, the sky is falling and our pets' heads are falling off. Like
our pets' heads?
That's from Dumb and Dumber.
Oh,
when Harry gives the
parakeet.
blind kid the parakeet that has no head, and the earlier he says something about our pets' heads are falling off. Yes,
I forgot that.
So that's what that quote is. The point is,
that's
like,
a good job
what have I always told you? Fan is short for fanatic, and I do think, just remember when people come at the coach, I was one that brought up the criticism of Tibbs tonight. I thought there was 2 or three quibbles, but I also started with they didn't lose this game. This wasn't a coaching loss.
Yeah, but your two things were the correct two things to bring up.
Yeah. I also agree with Alex, by the way. I'm concerned about Jalen Brunson. This is like 4 straight games, and it's a 4 straight games since he's been back, or 3 straight games since he's been back, that it's like, oh, you're kind of a traffic cone right now.
Yeah,
like,
and
the value he adds has always been effort this season. Like, you know what? He tries, is what we've always said. And then he gets those Bruns-hymned offensive fouls. When he's not getting that call,
he did get one tonight, by the way.
He did get one, but like there were several other possessions where they're flat out hunting him. That's what Benji's thread was on today. Our film session was on today. And that's what I'm worried about, is that as we get closer to the playoffs, they're going to start hunting him. And is he and his 6-foot frame up for it?
Yeah, and the reality of it, maybe, and it would be a drastic shift, but like there is a world where he's the guy that's running the second units instead of RJ. Which is like, that's always interested me because, again, and it's not the biggest of sample sizes, but the numbers with him and Quickly and like Obi are, I don't know if we have time to, it would take probably a minute for me to pull them up.
Who are you talking about?
You want to filibuster for a sec?
Sure. One thing I am low-key a little worried about, I don't know if someone brought up, I think someone did bring up a Quickly concern. Can I just read you his shooting splits since the Boston game? I'm just going to present the numbers and say that they exist. So since the Boston game, he is shooting 36% from the field.
Okay.
28.6% from 3. Still making his free throws, and is a negative 3.1.
Well, the negative 3.1 that's just so out of character for him because he's been such a positive.
Yep. And then I think he's in a shooting slump since the Boston game. It's not. But
he's had some good shooting games. He's had some atrocious shooting games,
which then even it out. So it's not 8 bad games. I'm literally just pointing out,
my point.
Since the Boston game, he's had 8 games and his shooting splits across the board. We're also talking about him after a 1-for-8 game. I actually thought that fourth quarter spurt that the bench went on to get the lead Quickly had a lot to do with that, especially on defense. And had he been shooting well, the Knicks would have been 140 to 127 would have been the final, or at least the Knicks would have won because they would have been able to match Miami bucket for bucket. But point being, it's just a note that Emmanuel Quickly is in a bit of a shooting slump overall since the Boston game.
Yeah, this is the one. It's in 350 minutes, so not insignificant sample size. Hardenstein, Brunson, and Quickly plus 17.6 per 100, 123.3 offense, 105.7 defense. That's a little deceiving, though, because Quickly and Hardenstein have closed a bunch of games. So you got Randall and Hart in those minutes. That's where a lot of that's coming from. The one that I was looking for, and it's not as good as I remembered, but it's still pretty good. In 205 minutes, Brunson topping and Quickly. So 205 minutes, not nothing, plus 13.9, 115.6 offense, which is very good, but below their usual offensive number. 101.7 defense. And I think that defensive number is important because I'm not saying like Jalen Brunson and Obi Toppin turn into I'm trying to think, Gary Payton and who's a really good defensive, Dennis Rodman defensively, but those units are playing against second units. Those Brunson Quickly Toppin units, and like it helps mitigate Brunson being taken advantage of. So the notion of switching it up and maybe getting Brunson now, is that really going to help that much? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because if you're going to want to win games in the playoffs, you're going to have Jalen Brunson out there during big minutes. So it's like he has to play better.
It's so much less about like an alternative option to Jalen Brunson. It's, are you worried about our primary option and the way he's looked since coming back from injury?
But at the same time, when it comes down to the playoffs and it's about like, every 5-minute stretch of the game matters. Is there a material improvement that you could make? Like, what is the trade-off? Because again, I'm not going to sit here like a lot of people do and be like, well, look at this net rating. You should obviously do this thing. Well, there's a trade-off, and the trade-off is that you're not going to have Jalen Brunson out there on offense, against an opposing team's starters who are theoretically their best defenders, and thus are you upholding your offensive number? So it's like there's a give and take. I don't know.
Two things real quick. We have 3 more super chats that came in. And Red Sarachek, well, first of all, he's another super chat, so read that.
With that said, I hope the guys have Mr. Reed in their heart, as we should all, when they take the floor this postseason. I think the Garden will have an extra special aura to it come the postseason that Captain would have loved to see. Well said.
Well said. He also says in the chat, the regular chat, GMAC, sorry, I should have clarified. I meant Tibbs adjusting to playing a team 4 to 7 games in a row, seeing different defenses. That's what he means by offensive strategy over a 7-game series.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, again, I thought their defense against the Hawks was really good.
Different league.
2 years ago?
Yeah. Like, I do wonder the advanced offense. This is the steroid era that we're in right now. This is a juiced ball season offensively.
But like
for the NBA.
The Knicks, to me, they're the simplest defense in the league to figure out. Like, you know exactly what they're going to do. Like, they're going to pack the paint. They're going to fall back. It's a matter of the team you're playing. Are they going to, one, make the requisite passes, which teams don't always do, and we'll see, but the good teams do. So you figure they're going to make the right passes. And then and that's why I loved Benji's thread today. It was not thread, but his clip where like nail help is how Benji puts it, where a guy is guarding a shooter on kind of like the top of the foul line extended, or maybe a little bit more to the top of the arc. And that person is supposed to kind of shade over to wall off the drive if there's a high pick and roll on the other side of the court. Like, that's the scheme. But the difference between executing that scheme properly and executing that scheme such that it's going to give up an open 3 is literally one additional step, maybe a step and a half. That's the difference. That's the difference. So that's not a scheme thing. That's just, are you executing, and you crossing your T's and you're dotting your I's? The other stuff, like again, shout out to Benji because he always talks about this, like giving up threes to opposing centers. Like, they're, spoiler alert, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And if Al Horford,
there's no center up. Although, like you just said it, it's Horford. That's the only.
And Brooke, I fear Brooke. I think Brooke can make threes.
Oh, we get to that point, anything is gravy. We get to the conference finals, and
but again, that's like the nice thing about playing the Cavs is that is one thing you do not have to worry about with Cleveland at all. You do not have to worry about their 5 spacing the floor. So the Knicks, that's what the nice thing is the Knicks can not only hide Brunson defensively, A, but B, they could just play their scheme, and they don't have to worry about any widget getting thrown into the machine and screwing it up. It's just about doing what you got to do.
You may also not have to worry about I guess LeVert would be their closing 3. I was gonna say their 3 spacing the floor. But I digress. 2 more.
Again, if LeVert's taking shots in a big spot, please.
You live with it.
Emil Balmansour, the Knicks are the hunted now. They need to match the energy of teams coming into trying to beat us. Let me finish reading the comment. Give credit to the Heat as well. They made shots. Do you think? We should give some credit to the Miami Heat, who played as perfect of a ball game as you could probably play. Like, man.
I thought we were headed for Taurean Prince, Gabe Vincent. Like, Gabe Vincent having a Taurean Prince night when he had 13 points in the first quarter and 16 at halftime.
Like, the Heat just and again, the Heat are dealing, you know what the limitations are dealing with? They're dealing with Gabe Vincent's defense. They're dealing with Max Strus's defense. And guess what? The Knicks did a good job of exploiting those things tonight. But otherwise, the Heat played a pretty perfect game. As far as trying to match the energy of teams coming in to try to beat us, that's the reason I knew I shouldn't say knew. I thought they were going to lose this game. I thought the Heat were going to come out and they were going to be like, not tonight, not in our building. And they did.
Last one.
Okay. Kevin Danishevsky with one more. Finishes us out. Fire Tibbs, Butler's awful. Cam, a Hall of Famer. Yell, John. Nah, I'm too old to yell.
How about no? And the show's over. There we go. Sorry, Kevin. He didn't yell. Chaos avoided.
Yeah, no, this is not a game worth yelling about. I don't think, at least. But anyway,
I'll yell at you off the air.
what?
I'll yell at you off the air. Shout out Johnny Bryant, my head coach. Okay.
Hashtag my head coach.
That's the hashtag. My head coach.
Hashtag my head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Remember to like the video.
I'm such an asshole. I'm so sorry. You were like, you did not deserve any of this. You were also right, by the way. 2 nights ago, you told me I should be afraid of the Miami Heat, and I was like, fuck the Miami Heat. And then the next day, I started doing research for a Heat pregame pod. I was like, oh, they're actually been really good in their last 12 games. Oh, they're actually really good at home. Oh, I should probably be afraid of what Jimmy Butler's doing this season.
Here, you know what? I'm going to parlay this into shitting on the Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched the 2 teams I've watched the most. Actually, 3 teams I've watched the most of are the Nets, the Heat, and the Hawks over the last, I don't know, month or so. And the Nets are a team that plays their butts off, and they do some really good things, and they go through stretches where they do look like a really good team, and then you remember that they are a flawed team, and they don't have a real, like Spencer Dinwiddie's their point guard, and there are stretches where they're just not going to look great on both ends, but they're a team that tries really hard. The Heat and the Hawks are more polar opposites for me. One of those teams has had a rough year for reasons, but you watch the Heat, they are not a broken team. The Hawks, broken team.
Hawks need an offseason. Like, that's my rational.
They need.
They need religion too. I'm just saying they need an offseason. Like, it's why the whole thing with Brooklyn, when we were afraid of them, it's like, no, they probably need an offseason to learn all of these new faces and maybe build some chemistry. That's one thing the Knicks have in their favor. The only new face they've added is Josh Hart faces.
Hold on.
Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, and Isaiah Hartenstein.
What the Hawks need a offseason to build chemistry.
Well, new voice.
What, for Sadiq Bey?
No, well, they're their coach. Like, you gotta learn a new system. You gotta learn new everything.
I think.
Look, maybe it's not fixable. Maybe it starts at the top, and
I think there's bigger.
The rots in the walls. But
my point is, watching the Hawks, my 2 cents watching them, it's like, oh, that team's broken. Talented as all hell, but broken. The Heat, I've never once gotten that sense, which is why I have not gotten off this hill on that. Miami's not dead yet.
They start winning road games, then I'll join you on that hill. I need to see them not lose to the Bulls after a back-to-back and not need 4 full quarters to beat the Pistons.
I mean, whatever. We don't have to talk about it. I mean, if you're the Sixers, you really is that the team you want to see? If you're
gotta be honest,
the Celtics,
the take earlier that maybe we want to play the Celtics, I don't completely disagree with it.
It's not nuts.
That team is ripe for a first-round upset. A head coach that's clearly a step down from last season. They've gotten worse every month by net rating, by record all season. This Jalen Brown situation that's looming over all of this. And not for nothing, the Knicks beat them 3 out of 4 times this year.
I know, but they're a very talented team.
Their ceiling is probably the highest of any contender, and not including Golden State, but that's a whole nother thing, Their ceiling is probably the highest of any contender. This is what Dan Favale said. Highest of any contender. It's also the lowest of any contender. They can win the title or they can lose in the first round. There's no other team.
I disagree with that. I think the highest ceiling is the Suns. And I would actually probably put the Bucks as a higher ceiling than the Celtics, but the Celtics are in the conversation.
But so the Suns are they're at least, you understand why their ceiling is different. Like, I'm talking about as currently constructed, we know what the Celtics are,
Sure.
Like the Suns, maybe they'll get Kevin Durant back. And then, their ceiling is super high.
All right, whatever.
But that's my point. Like, the Celtics as is can either win the title or lose in the first round. If the Suns get Kevin Durant back, they could either win the title or lose the title probably to the Bucks in 6 games.
Or losing
the conference finals. The point is, with Durant, they're not losing.
Round.
With Durant, I trust them a little more.
We're really getting off the rails before we were supposed to finish up. But the Suns could face the Warriors in the first round. The Suns could face the Clippers still in the first round. The Paul George thing obviously complicates that. But
Who has home court in that Warrior series?
You want to tell me the Warriors? Well, look, we'll see what happens.
Now we're off the rails. We'll save
now
it for
we're off the
Patreon.
rails.
One more, by the way.
Red Sarachek with another one. What is Musseton?
Made up stat of the night.
Oh, that's right. You think this for some reason it's not permeating. Slumping before the playoffs is 99.98% preferred over slumping during the playoffs. That stat was brought to you by Hint. It rhymes with Schmeiss and Schmosen Blue.
Schmeiss and Schmosen Blue.
All
right, let's wrap
All right, now we're done. We'll see you tomorrow for post game. We got a pregame pod dropping.
Yep, recorded it before the Heat game tonight.
Awesome, great stuff. Looking forward to listening to that. We'll see everybody. Take care. Peace.